Well, hey everyone, how are ya? How you doing? Welcome to my 7-year keto anniversary show. All the lessons I've learned, things I've changed my mind about. Hey, we're live, everyone. Are you curious what happens after 7 years following a keto diet? Do you wonder what my results, my struggles, things I've changed my mind about over that time? This episode is for you. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show. Join in. Let me know where you're watching from, where you're joining from. I am doing a little digital nomad life. So you might notice if you're a regular viewer of the show, I'm in a different location doing a little bit of a digital nomad for a few months before I go up to Seattle area. My son lives up there. And so in August and September, I'm going to be spending some time up there. So I'm doing a little Airbnb jaunt down here in the Phoenix area for a few months before then. And getting the light settled and everything in here, it's a little different. So welcome to the show, everyone. Again, welcome to Keto Chat Live, my special 7-year anniversary episode. I'm your host, Carol Freeman. I have a master's degree in nutrition, clinical health psychology. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I'm also a board certified ketogenic nutrition specialist. That is a mouthful. Can you see me glistening here in the wonderful Arizona heat? Now, I specialize in helping women 40 plus follow a keto diet for sustainable weight loss. Let me give you a quick little medical disclaimer here about this show is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not medical advice, nor is it intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure any condition whatsoever. If you have questions or concerns related to your specific medical conditions, please seek out advice from your personal healthcare professional. So welcome, everyone. How are y'all doing? How's it going today? All right, personal update check-in here. Heading out tonight to do some comedy in Ahwatukee, which is the southern part of Phoenix, Arizona. And if you didn't know, you can actually get all of my events and updates of events, comedy, and show events at thecarolfreeman.com. Let me just add that on the screen here so you can go there. I mean, don't go now, but later, bookmark it for later. Just remember that Carol is that very fancy French spelling that has an E on the end. I can .com. All right, here we go. If you want to stay updated on all my comedy shows and upcoming Keto Chat Live events, that's where to go. All the events are updated on there. So thecarolfreeman.com. Again, Carol has an E on the end of it. And our podcast, really exciting. Our podcast has been charting the nutrition charts, topping. Oh, that's easy for me to say, right? We're topping the nutrition charts all over the world, and Canada, Norway recently, and just currently we're number 51 in Saudi Arabia. Hello to everyone listening from there, and number 148 in South Africa. So thank you for our listeners all around the world. It's been really exciting to see this grow. So we're just heading in. This is our second year of doing this podcast, and it's really exciting to see where people are getting information from. And so also another update here is that on June 6th of 2022, I'm going to be running, by popular demand, I'm going to be running my Pathway to End Emotional Eating program. So this is a program that's specifically designed to teach you how to cope with your feelings and emotions in healthy ways instead of turning to food to numb out, soothe, or avoid your feelings. And so if you want more information about that, I'll tell you at the end of the show about how to get more information. And but popular demand, it's diet agnostic. So if you're just struggling to stick with keto because you turn to food for comfort, stress relief, all of that, this program is specifically designed for that. So all right, up next, I'm going to give a product review. So I started the last couple of episodes featuring a product that I've tried, and Sapiens Kitchen. I discovered them a few weeks ago. They commented on something in a local Arizona keto Facebook group here, and I didn't even know they existed. And so they were, I got a chat with the owner of the company actually when he came and delivered my food. He told me more of their story. And so they were a paleo kitchen, paleo restaurant, like a higher end paleo restaurant in the Scottsdale, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. They were a very high-end paleo restaurant. And then unfortunately, during the pandemic, like a lot of restaurants, they really struggled to stay open. So then that's when they decided they would try to do some meal delivery service. And so they do both paleo and keto friendly meals. And so about a week and a half ago, I ordered about 10 different meals. I ordered basically every meal that they had available that they said was keto. And also then they had some standalone proteins. And so I know that most dishes are light on the protein. And so I ordered every single solo protein that they had available as well. I'm still working my way through them. And I'll tell you what, like absolutely delicious food, like really high quality. The owner, it turns out one of the owners was the one that delivered the food right to my door. And so we chatted for quite a while. He said that everything is organic, fresh, and I can taste, like I have all this culinary training. I used to teach cooking classes and so on, that basically there's a very high quality ingredients, but also very high quality crafting of the dishes as well. So most of the dishes were veggies and protein, and then they had some kind of a little dish of sauce. And Roman, the one of the owners, had explained to me that the sauce is part of the keto mix on that. So there's some healthy fats in there. And they do primarily paleo keto, so there was no dairy in anything that they gave me, which good or bad. I love dairy, but that's their focus that they do. Again, I'll say the portions were good. The protein portion, it varied from dish to dish, but it was a pretty good protein portion. I'll admit I should have actually weighed them out, so I could have given some macro breakdowns. But the protein, I'm guessing for each dish was probably around 40 grams of protein, just from my experience. And the veggie portion is probably more than what would be. So for my clients, I recommend 20 total carbs in the beginning. And the veggie portion that they provided was probably more in alignment with like 10 to 14 carbs per dish, or maybe even a little bit more. So they had summer squash. Some of the dishes had some spaghetti squash in there, just a small portion of that, and green beans. I'm trying to remember some other ones, some bell peppers, and let's see. Let's see. Oh, I wonder if I could look at my photo of what the food was to see what the dishes I got were. So I haven't taken all of them yet. So let's see. There was somebody play the Jeopardy music for me here. Okay. On my phone, there's the dishes that they came in little individual containers. There was a delicious, I think it was probably like a, not a flank steak, but a skirt steak, and some cauliflower and broccoli with that, and a delicious savory sauce that went with that, and some sauteed mushrooms. I can see these now. There was one that was cod that was really delicious and had like a lemon caper sauce that came with it, and some other veggies. Pork, I haven't eaten that one. There were so many that I ended up putting something in my freezer. So there's a big bone-in pork chop, and that thing is looks like it's about a 10-ounce piece of pork. And let's see, what else did I have that was so good? There was a chicken one that had a little bit of a sauce that had apples in it. And I also got a stuffed bell pepper that was stuffed, brimming filled with grass-fed organic beef and some other things in there. And it was a giant portion. That was definitely 2 portions worth. And so overall, really high quality, very delicious, reasonably priced. Like each of the meals were $12 to $14 each, very affordable, very reasonable price for what you're getting. Again, the veggie portion, I've ended up for most of the meals, like kind of cutting the veggies in half, and I've got lots of veggies left over, more veggie serving than I would want normally for a meal. But so if you're in the Phoenix area, check them out. Highly recommended. And the owner wanted to do some kind of a collab. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do some kind of a live interview with him on the show, and perhaps some live events in the Phoenix area, like them doing some kind of a dinner at their restaurant for keto folks. So if you're in the Phoenix area, lucky for you. Linda, the name of the company is Sapiens Kitchen. So like Homo sapiens, Sapiens Kitchen, and you'll be able to find them if you search on Google. But again, they're just in the, they're in the suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. They don't ship nationwide. They actually, hand deliver the food themselves. And from what I understand, it's on Wednesdays to most of the Phoenix area. So their website has information about you order directly on the website, anything, and fill out your shipping information, and then they deliver every Wednesday, is what I understand. So, so that's my product review of the week, Sapiens Kitchen. You see me glistening? Is that what they call it in Texas? Is glistening? I've got AC's on and the fans on me. It's a little toasty in this place, though. It's not quite as cool as the place I was at before. And all right, so hey, let's get to the juicy goodness of me recapping the last 7 years on my keto journey. I can't believe it's been that long. But just like anything else in your life, like time passes really quickly. And so if you've been thinking about making a dietary change, but you just keep putting it off, 7 years can go by in the blink of an eye and keep getting unhealthier, more overweight, or you could just work your way through continuing to do it. So, okay, Paul's here. Welcome, Paul. And he's saying, I've been keto for 5 years, went from 103 kg to 64 kg, and have been quite weight stable since. Resolved high blood pressure and ulcerative colitis. Wonderful. That's excellent, Paul. Congrats on your success. You started by saying question, but it looks like it's a statement. So congrats on your success. Celebrate here. I've got a fun little, let's do this. Let's round of applause for Paul's success on keto there, everyone. Yay, Paul. And so Paul's asking a medical question here. He's asking, he's had lots of kidney stones in the past 2 years. Any ideas or thoughts of related to keto? I can't give any, personal medical advice like that. I'd recommend checking out, if you don't have a keto-friendly doctor yourself, I can recommend that you talk to this person here. So atgohealth.com is the virtual functional medicine doctor that I refer a lot of my clients to. And at that website, that URL, if you go there, you can get a free 15-minute consult with Dr. Ruiz. He's amazing. And so that's what I would recommend for you there, Paul, to get that figured out, what's going on for you. So so I'm glad you're here. Congrats on all your success. And tell Dr. Ruiz that I sent you, and he gives all my referrals a very special rate too. So check him out. He's fantastic. So all right. I'm going to talk about my journey now. My assistant gave me an idea. She's like, well, what about having some of your successful clients on your show for your 7-year anniversary? And at first I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And I was like, no, this show's about me. This show's about me. We talk a lot about my client success on a lot of my shows, but this is about my journey, and not to be selfish or anything like that, but people want an update. And, 7 years is a long time to do anything. And so let's talk about my journey. And pre-keto, so my anniversary date is May 18th, 2015. And so previous to that, in 2007 through 2011, I went to Bastyr University. I was working towards my dream degrees, and I got an undergrad in nutrition, and then I moved on to a double master's program. I got a master's degree in nutrition and clinical health psychology simultaneously. And I'll tell you what, if you haven't been to grad school, try doing 2 of them at the same time. That was a stressor time in my life. But I have always been passionate about helping, especially women, feel physically and mentally good, as healthy as possible, but not only feeling healthy, but just mentally really healthy as well, too. And so the degree that Bastyr offers, as far as I know, they still offer it. When I saw that, nutrition and psychology together, dream degree. I was like, this is what I want. I want to know the psychological support to give people to help them be able to make these dietary changes. But I also want to learn, how does diet influence our mental health and well-being? And so to me, it was my dream degree, and I worked my behind off in getting it. So Facebook user, happy anniversary. Thank you so much. And Facebook group, it won't show your name unless you actually give it permission. So you can there should be a link there that lets you give permission to show your name and image, or you can actually just type it in as a comment and let me know that that's you, and then I'll know who's watching from Facebook. And okay, so state-of-the-art, world-renowned school. It's where most naturopathic doctors are trained in the world, and really high-quality education, science-based whole food nutrition. We learned, don't fear fat. And however, the approach that we were taught to helping people make dietary change, weight loss, was really, you shouldn't try to help people lose weight. We learned something called the health in every size model, that the research shows that when people try to lose weight, typically they just gain it back and they gain even more back. And so therefore it's just better to help people accept their body the way that it is and follows things like intuitive eating and mindful eating. And while I think these have a lot of value, what I've found in my approach is that it's not a fruitless endeavor to try to help people lose weight. It just takes sustained effort and a comprehensive approach for reasons I'll talk about here in a minute. But that, using mindful eating and intuitive eating in the context of eating a whole foods diet, that in the words of Dr. Ken Berry would say, the proper human diet, you can intuitively eat and mindfully eat, but you can't do that with things like cake and cookies and fast food. Okay. I was using everything I was taught at school about mindful eating and not trying to worry about my weight or anything like that, and intuitive eating. And so every evening I would ask myself, what are you craving? What do you need right now? And 9 times out of 10, the answer was cake, like chocolate cake or cookies or something like that. And I'll tell you what, I gained weight. By the time I graduated in the years after that, following that advice, I developed metabolic syndrome. If you're not familiar with metabolic syndrome, it's there are 5 different signs that you have this. And if you have any three of the 5, then you have what's considered metabolic syndrome. And this is an issue where it basically means you're kind of pre-diabetic, but it also means that your body's in a place where you're headed towards pretty much every chronic disease that's out there if you don't do something to turn it around. And so this approach, it doesn't work without some other parameters of changing what what you do eat and what you don't eat. And so I had this. Let's see if I can do the 5 things that mean you have metabolic syndrome. So 1 is a waist measurement above 35 inches for women, above 40 inches for men, high blood pressure, high fasting blood glucose, high triglycerides, and what's the other one? Low HDL cholesterol, what's considered your good cholesterol. Those are the signs. And so I had probably almost all of those. And okay, so how did I find keto though? I learned about it this much in my degrees, but it was taught to us about, here's a therapy that's for epilepsy. And that's about all it was at that time. So again, remember, this was 2007 through 2011. This was not when keto was very popular. We were not being taught it as a weight loss protocol. And so in March of 2014, that was a turning point in my life that led to me discovering the power of keto. And I was in a horrible car accident. I was rear-ended by a distracted driver. She was going approximately 35 miles an hour and didn't even tap on her brakes, distracted for some reason. We know it was probably Instagram or Facebook. There's no way to know. She told the cops that she was reaching for her smoothie, but the length of time that she accelerated into me before the crash was 10 seconds. That's a really long time to reach for a smoothie, especially when cars these days have about 10 cup holders within reach. So maybe she was making a smoothie while she was driving. I don't know. But anyways, I sustained a traumatic brain injury, crush injuries to my legs, and I was in bad shape. I spent about the next 3 months in bed, unable to walk, and progressively, I was able to get back out of bed after about 3 months, but my health declined over the next year and a half. Just things got worse and worse and worse. Continued to gain a lot of weight, and the list of health problems, I swear, would take 2 pages. And I finally figured out that I'd had this undiagnosed traumatic brain injury, and imaging sense has proved this. And I developed what's called post-traumatic hypopituitarism, which basically the little pituitary gland in my brain wreaked havoc and was making everything in my body misfire and miswork. And so I went to countless doctor's appointments. I did so much research on my own trying to figure out how to solve this. And I finally, out of sheer desperation, I'm like, I know that if I can feed my body correctly, I believe that it can heal. What can I feed my body to help it heal? What is it missing right now? And I stumbled upon, I remembered that we learned about keto diet as a treatment for epilepsy in grad school. And I reasoned that, well, epilepsy is something that's not going right in the brain. And perhaps keto might help my brain because it's not working right now. And so I started researching, Googling, and at that time, Dr. Peter Attia was doing his keto experiments. And he is a science nerd. His blog is so, at that time, I think it's different now, but at that time it was so specific and so detailed and so research-based. I felt really confident that this could be a healthy and safe thing for me to take on, whereas what everyone else at that time thought was that it was dangerous, not only from a standpoint of trying to get into ketosis, but also just the diet mentality that I've been taught was such a bad thing. Like, you don't restrict foods, that causes eating disorders. You're going to do more harm than you do good. So I secretly started my experiment, and I was so desperate to not be bedridden and disabled anymore. And I'll tell you what, when I first started keto, I was getting my food for my son and I at the food bank because I couldn't work. My son was working 2 jobs to pay our rent. I was in a bad place and I was seriously desperate. And so when people say they can't afford to do keto, that's not true. You can do it with food that is gifted to you if you do it correctly, right? So so that's how I started it. Things changed really quickly, very, very quickly. I chronicled the whole thing in a monthly blog series, and I'll link to that. Let's see. Let me put the first one. It's my old blog. And so I did a monthly update of how things were going and how all the improvements in my body. And so I'm linking in the comments here. Let's see. Okay, so I put it on YouTube and in Facebook. I'll put it in the show notes as well. And so if you were listening to this podcast later on and not watching live, I'll put a link to my blog my old blog in the show notes as well. So this is that one I've linked is month 1. This is my I started this experiment in secret, and here's all that changed. And it's pretty dramatic, actually, as you go through. So I've got one blog post for each month of the first year that I was on keto, and I cataloged how things were changing, what all I was improving, and what I was up to at that time. So after 4 or 5 months, I started speaking, and I spoke at an epilepsy conference. I spoke at a Toastmasters conference. I started speaking in the keto world. And so look at that later. Stay with me here. I'm live and sharing some stuff with you. But if you want to go into more detail than what I'm going to share here, check out my blog there. So in short, in summary, in the first 6 months of doing this, I lost 60 pounds and 10 inches off my waist. The health improvements, I no longer had high blood pressure. I no longer had metabolic syndrome. I no longer was pre-diabetic. My inflammation was sky high when I started. That was down in the normal range. I also dropped my heart rate by 20 points. And I know that's switching over from being a carb burner to a fat burner. You get a dramatic reduction in your heart rate, which also is an indicator of metabolic health as well, but also just cardiovascular health too. I had dramatic improvements in my skin, anti-aging effects. A lot of people accuse me of having Botox. I still have not had Botox. And I was pain-free. So I had developed what's called chronic regional pain syndrome in my legs from the car accident. And that was not something when I started keto that I had any idea that would improve. It was something that I had 2 aunts that had developed in their lifetime. And it's a chronic pain syndrome that gets worse, it spreads, and it's disabling. It ends up causing your legs, wherever the injury is, you can get it any limb in your body, but it just starts to disable it, that it starts to just curl and the muscles curl up, and it's bad news stuff. And that went into remission very, very quickly, and which is unheard of. But also doing this for 7 years now, I have story after story after story of clients with some kind of a chronic pain issue that goes away. You know, people that had previous car accidents that were far more severe than what I had been through, that 10 years they were taking painkillers and icing their legs still, that was no longer an issue. Ladies that were scheduled for knee replacement surgery that canceled their surgery because their knees felt so great. Those are just a couple of examples of chronic pain that people have that has gone away or gone into remission with keto. And what else? Mental clarity. Incontinence. So this was another interesting one that I only knew this was a common thing that happened for people on keto because of all the women I've worked with. And I noticed it was something for me that went away. We're told as women that after we have a child that, having urinary incontinence is just part of life, mama. So just get used to it. But I started noticing in my group coaching with my clients, that was something that people started to report after a few months, is that they no longer had stress incontinence. So if you cough and a little pee comes out, or if you sneeze or something like that, that's stress incontinence. And that actually went away for people. I still haven't seen this reported in the literature anywhere, but I have seen it so many times with my clients that it's a thing. And so it doesn't have to be a part of mama's life. Tons of energy, physical stamina, waking up in the morning with the same amount of energy that I go to bed with. And also just helping thousands of women and a few men along the way on this journey have been, really the results that I've experienced over these 7 years. And so I'm also going to share with you, where am I currently on my 7-year keto? Am I still keto? What are some struggles that I faced on this journey? And then I'm also going to share then what's changed about my approach from the very beginning versus what I teach my clients now. So where am I currently? Well, I've maintained not having metabolic syndrome and not having diabetes. So my family history, we've got diabetes on one side, and the other side we've got, actually even more things. So diabetes, gastrointestinal issues, so diverticulitis runs in my family. On the other side, we've got heart attack, stroke. Both sides, we've got dementia. And the people in my family that have those things, it started in their 40s, and I'm 51 now, and I don't have any of those things. Also pre-keto years before, so in my late 20s, I had really severe digestive issues that was long before keto, but that was something that they were contemplating surgery to remove that for me. So this runs in my family as well. So for my not perfect that I've been doing on keto, I've been able to avoid all of these issues that run in my family that I also was having pre-keto as well. So, full confession time, I'm up 20 pounds over my lowest weight that I achieved on keto. But that's just living proof that you don't have to be perfect at this. You just have to not give up. And so even though I'm not perfect, it hasn't been 7 years of me eating everything perfectly keto during that time. That doing what I have done has been far more successful than anything I've ever tried. I've never been able to maintain any dietary change for 7 years. I've never been able to avoid the medical history fate of what my genetics lead me to with any other dietary change, even not being perfect. All right. So I'm living proof that don't give up. You don't have to be perfect. You're going to be so much better off than you were had you given up and just gone back to your old eating habits. And, so why have I had struggles? Why can't I be perfect? Why, if I've got this figured out, why is it not so easy just to be perfect and never gain weight? Well, the truth is I've covered this in past episodes, and I've got some more episodes planned about this as well. But our bodies, they really want to regain the weight. We're designed to overeat and gain as much weight as possible. This is just from most of human existence, living in an environment where food was scarce. And those of us that survived were the ones that our body was really good at seeking out food, eating as much as possible, and then gaining that as weight. And so we're designed that way. And so we have to be diligent against that. A lot of people, the criticism of keto, well, it's not sustainable. But guess what? The only thing that's sustainable in our current food environment is continuing to gain weight, overeating, and developing chronic disease. That's sustainable. So it takes work. It takes hard work and diligence to maintain something that's different than what most of the food in our environment is. But it's worth it. If you want to be physically fit, that takes a concerted effort to do it most days of the week, going to the gym or walking or riding a bike or whatever it is you're into. You have to do that most days over not. Nobody tells somebody that who just gets a gym membership, well, that's not sustainable. You shouldn't even try. It's just ridiculous that we're told trying to maintain healthy eating habits, even not being perfect, that it's not sustainable. Well, with the right support, the right approach, it can be, and you can avoid the fate that you would have otherwise. Because I'll tell you what, if I'd just been eating the way that I had been pre-keto, intuitive eating, and just eating whatever I wanted, hoping I would maintain moderation, I'll tell you what, right now, I'd probably be about twice the weight that I am right now, in all honesty. I would be on several medications for diseases, and I would be a very typical 51-year-old where I would have aches and pains and taking a lot of painkillers and things like that. So I'm in a far better place than I would be had I not been on this journey. So also, we live in an obesogenic environment. I think I mentioned that. We live in a world where food is abundant. It's everywhere. You don't even have to leave your chair to order food to your house and eat it, overeat it. And you can drive through in a car and get mountains of food. It's how people show love and how people caretake, and having a dessert 3 times a day is the norm, whereas it used to be that desserts were for special occasions, right? So, and the food manufacturers, you know what, they conspire against us. They want us to overeat because we've reached a point where most people have enough calories in a day. And so to keep maintaining increasing profits and selling more food, what do they got to do? They got to design these foods to be craveable and to make us overeat them, have no satiety, and to buy them repeatedly. So all that works against us. And I'm not perfect or immune to that. And carbs are also very comforting. They're easy to use to cope with stress and emotions. And just like my clients, we're all a work in progress. So this is part of why we call it the keto journey. It's not some people say keto lifestyle. So keto lifestyle is what we're aiming to maintain. The keto journey is more about like when you started it to where you are now, and you still got the journey that goes on the rest of our lives. This isn't something that we just do for a while and then we quit and everything's fine and perfect. And so it's a journey, still on the journey. I'm not getting off this journey. And, that's, my struggles have been what everybody's struggles are when they live this as a lifestyle. So part of why I want to share that is that I want you all to know that you don't have to be perfect. If you've struggled, you're not alone. And that's why I provide long-term support for my clients, because you know what, if people weren't watching what I was doing, if I didn't have my team of coaches that we meet every week, if I didn't have my clients looking to me as an example and role model of how to maintain this sustainably, I would probably have not been able to avoid regaining all the weight myself. And so my support system is putting this podcast out for you all and having the clients that I connect with daily, and we all support each other. That's one of the most important parts of making it sustainable, is having other people around you that you're connected with that are successful in maintaining your keto journey. And so what's changed about my approach since 7 years ago? Okay. So one of the biggest changes is more protein, very protein centric now. So in the beginning, a lot of us thought that if you ate too much protein, it kicked you out of ketosis, it raised your blood sugar, and it was anti-ketogenic. And so one of the things we've had to recognize is that a medical therapeutic keto diet, for example, for little kids where we want them growing, or somebody who has brain cancer, something like that, they're doing keto for medical reasons, not for weight loss. That's a very different diet than a weight loss or sustainable weight loss eating plan that's very different. And so one of the things that we found is that having protein as your first priority and more protein. So in the beginning, I recommended that women have between, around 60 grams of protein a day, and 60 to 80, and men a little bit more than that. But what I found is that most women actually do much better, closer to double that, around 100, 120 grams, or maybe even more of protein a day. So that's a big difference from when I first started out. And so what I found with the more protein, okay, so things that were common side effects of keto are no longer an issue. So one of the things that's really good at, so I'll notice when my clients, their protein intake is really low, their cravings are much higher. Protein foods are actually rich in vitamins and minerals. And so you're going to get more a nutrient dense diet when you're getting more protein than you are fat. And also the hair loss issues that some women have, protein centric. So very, protein forward, focusing on protein is the highest priority each day. They don't lose their hair. I've also had some ladies recently, year over year, getting DEXA scans. So they're not, one of them works out a lot, 5 days a week or more, and then the other one doesn't work out at all. And they both not only maintain their lean mass, but they increased it. And that is also because of the protein-centric focus. And so most women undereat protein. They eat very little protein. They eat lots of carbs. They nibble and snack all day long on a lot of carby stuff, and they undereat protein. And so protein is a nutrient we need. The amino acids from proteins and then the minerals that are attached to those amino acids all are necessary to have optimally healthy body. So there's some of the summary of why we much higher protein intake is the focus now as opposed to when I started out. Also, one of the other changes too, what's different in 7 years of me doing this is that there's less focus on fat. And so in the beginning, I was teaching it, you needed a ratio 1-to-1 protein to fat, and more fat was better. And so now it's in the very beginning, people getting used to having a higher fat intake because that's where some of the satiety comes from. And this definitely is not a low fat diet, and it's an adequate fat diet. And so people are getting the nutrients that they've been missing for a long time from fat soluble vitamins. And so while we're not force feeding fat, we're not doing bulletproof coffee, we're not putting tons of butter and coconut oil in our coffee and on everything else like that. Where in the beginning I had more of an emphasis on, let's get some MCT oil, let's get some coconut oil, let's try to increase your fat intake. Much less of a focus on that now. And so I teach people differently about how to moderate fat, how much fat to add to their diet. Also, I've let go of having a ratio of protein to fat. So some people out there 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 fat to protein. I don't do any of that. And another big difference now is that I'm working with a functional medicine doctor. So I'm doing regular lab reviews with my clients, their metabolic health panel. We get that at the beginning of their journey, and then we check it at several points during there. And there's some stuff that have come up in the labs, just general health labs that not my area of expertise. And so I've got a functional medicine doctor that I refer people to when they need a little more help with that. And some of the things turns out were things that came up in my clients' labs for years that their regular doctor just never noticed or didn't follow up on. And so we've had some really dramatic things we found that were otherwise just getting swept under the rug or ignored, that life-saving things for people actually that have changed for them. So that's I'm really grateful to be able to work with the functional medicine doctor that I have and have that as part of our team so that people can get, the goal is optimal health, not dead care. Another thing that's changed as well over my 7-year journey is that I have multiple different programs. I've fine-tuned my approach with all the experience that I've had personally and everyone that I've worked with over that time. And I've got several different programs that are all designed to help women, a few men, but mostly women, just be able to sustain this as a lifestyle that's healthy and optimizing their body, their mind, their spirit. And so we've got, I've got a starter program that all my clients go through initially. Then we've got an annual membership that people can join after that to stay connected and keep learning and being supported on their journey. And the other change too that I should have put earlier than mentioning that was just that intermittent fasting, so skipping meals for women or promoting fasting in women, probably isn't the best thing for their hormones. So this is something more newer in the, in this year that I've been learning about and exploring. And I did an interview with Dr. Ruiz, one of my past podcast episodes. Let's see, what number was that? Let's look really quickly here. It was, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing it off the top of my list here really quickly. And okay, I don't know which episode it was, but Dr. Ruiz specializes in thyroid. And so or on our interview, we talked about how women's hormones are much more sensitive to infrequencies of feeding. And so, women's hormones, ideally what it's designed for is reproduction. And when nutrients or food is scarce in an environment, that's not the ideal time to reproduce. And so while that's not everybody's goal, that's with being mindful of that is what circumstances is going to help us be optimally healthy. And so he's the one that's kind of talking to me about, the intermittent fasting. So skipping breakfast or promoting fasting in women is going to likely wreak more havoc in the body, maybe affect thyroid function, just overall hormone production and function in the woman's body more so than it would in men. And so that's another thing that's different. Not encouraging women to go down to 1 meal a day, maybe for some of them not even doing 2 meals a day, and not encouraging. I used to do a lot of like fasting challenges and things like that, and I no longer do that with my female clients too. I've also let go of egg fasting. That used to be something that I would teach people, is how to accelerate fat loss by doing egg fasting, which is a very, very high fat version of keto, eggs and butter basically. And I no longer include that in my teachings. And so that's kind of the summary of what's my journey has been. I guess I should include where am I going next? Well, I'm not, this is how I see myself continuing to eat the rest of my life. And this isn't something where, need to always be 20 grams of carbs or less. I work with my clients on looking at those metabolic health labs. And when you've got to the point of metabolic health, then that may be a time when you can have more carbs. That shows that your body can tolerate a higher carb intake. And so not everybody needs to be keto level carbs indefinitely. That's a very individualized, personalized thing. One of the things that I work with my clients on is, so not only looking at the labs, when are you metabolically healthy? When could your body tolerate a higher carb intake? But we're also looking at that psychology side of things. What foods trigger you to overeat? What foods trigger you to be food obsessed again? Because my clients really enjoy not having any cravings, not being food obsessed, and being able to eat mindfully and intuitively. And so there's certain foods, certain types of carbs, or certain amounts of carbs, or both, that turn all that back on. So we're looking at quality of relationship with the food you're eating. What turns the craving back on, what triggers overeating and binge eating, and avoiding that. And so again, this journey model of let's figure out what is sustainable for you long term. And so that's really the focus, is how do we actually make this sustainable despite what everyone tells us about it being not sustainable. So that's where I see my future, continuing these live shows and producing the podcast, continuing to prioritize protein, real whole foods in my life, and low carb, keto occasionally, and also putting out my practitioner training program. So I did a few years ago, I ran a alpha version of a practitioner training where I taught other healthcare providers how to build out a keto program in their clinic or their practice, and how to basically promote and market that. And so my plans in the next year or two is to launch that on a larger scale. I see myself perhaps doing some teaching at local schools, colleges, and going more between Phoenix area and Seattle area, and more of this that snowbird life perhaps, and continuing to spread the word and working with clients and improving their health, teaching them how to do keto in a way that is psychologically sustainable as well as physiological sustainable for them. So, so that is a summary of my 7-year journey, where we're going next. And so up next in next week's show is going to be about the secrets to ending emotional eating. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm relaunching my Pathway to End Emotional Eating program, which is focused on how do we learn to identify our feelings, how do we have them and cope with them in healthy ways instead of using food to numb, soothe, or avoid things, so that you can stay on your keto journey more easily. And so we've got an info session coming up about that. And so if you're interested, if you're struggling to stay on keto because of emotional or stress eating, I encourage you to send an email to support@ketocarol.com. I've got this email here, support@ketocarol.com, and just say, I want info about ending emotional eating. And my assistant's going to get that and follow up with some information for you. We'll share the info session with you, and then how you can join that program if that's something that's of interest to you. So that, again, next week's show is going to be on that topic, and also be having a more in-depth info session coming up soon as well. All right. So, all right. This show has been about my 7-year journey on keto. Happy anniversary. 7 years, everyone. And please support the show. Give us a review on your podcast platform. So if you're Apple iTunes out there, give me a review. I would love to have my first review out there. And remember, if you help us grow the show, we'll help you shrink. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. That's all I had planned for this topic. So we'll see you all next time. Thanks for being here. We'll see you soon. Bye now.